Welcome to the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, where we have uncensored conversations. We exchange information. We provide a ton of resources for everyone here in this podcast. We want to let everybody know that when it comes to trigger warning conversations that we have in this room, we are really meaning trigger warning conversations. But that's intentional because we want to make sure that the discomfort and the triggers that you may experience in whatever traumas that you have, whether it's human or sex trafficking, domestic violence, missing persons, or sexually based offenses, are actually dealt with. I call it the iceberg conversations, and we're going to talk about that with our guests here in a few moments. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are sponsored by Anchor. And for anyone who wants to start a podcast or is thinking about switching over to a different platform, choose Anchor. It's free, doesn't cost you a dime. You can do it from your smart device or on your computer. You can record anywhere at any time. There are a bunch of options that are listed in Anchor, music, all kind of things. So we are sponsored by Anchor. We are produced by my company, Penton Penn Consulting Solutions, LLC, and we are streaming everywhere. We're on all major platforms. We have a ton of information that we provide in the resources section, and we're going to make sure that you have all the safety measures that you need. So if you are triggered at any point during this podcast, and I mean at any point, call 911. That's your first resource that starts the documentation process, that assembles the initial team that can help you in whatever issue that you're having that you may be triggered by. If you don't have an immediate need, we recommend that you follow along and look in the resources that we provide. So we have trafficking, sexual assault, and the domestic violence hotlines and websites that are associated with those companies and organizations. If you have issues with substance abuse, alcoholism, we provide information and resources for those individuals. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and also Al-Anon. If you are suicidal or know somebody that's suicidal, call 988. That is the 911 number that the government set up for suicidal issues. And again, that's 988. And of course, at the end of every podcast that we do, we feature a missing person case. This is a very strange case that we're going to cover today. And that case involves a young lady. And we'll talk about that a little later on. But in the meantime and in between time, I want to introduce my very special guest. Her name is Heather Tucker. Heather Tucker is a certified Christian sex coach for women, but she does deal with men also. She is a two-time best-selling author with her books, Damn You, Weight Loss Plateaus, that helps women. Excuse me, sorry about that. Helps women, and she helps them get to their sexy after having kids. And why doesn't my husband want me? That book helps couples overcome and avoid sexless marriages. She is the creator of she is the creator of the Sexify, her program that helps women overcome religious sexual shame, release their sexual confidence, intentions, female sexuality, and empowerment into their lives and relationships. Heather has been married to her husband, Chuck, for 21 years. So big applause for that. Way to go, Chuck, for sticking in there and hanging in there, because that is a lot. I've been married for 3 years now. So I'm looking forward to that 20-year anniversary and beyond. But you know what? Heather told me that during that 21-year period, there was 12 years that they had to overcome a sexless marriage. 12 years. We're going to talk about that. And she also is the mom of 3 healthy boys and is a first-time grandma. I'm a first-time grandpa to 1 grandson. I have a granddaughter. So we're going to provide information on how to get in touch with Heather about her books, her program, and a bunch of other things. But in the meantime, I want to welcome Heather Tucker, the Christian sex coach, in the house, in the building. We're going to jump right into her story. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of why my partner doesn't want me. This is a domestic violence and sexual violence convo. And again, at any point for the listeners, if you're triggered, please, please, please call 911 for starters. Coach Heather, how are you today?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, we had a great conversation yesterday. And when I met you in Clubhouse, I thought, oh my God, this woman is amazing.
Thank you.
I looked at your IG and, I absolutely love your reels. So you doing reels on TikTok too, or just
Oh, yeah.
IG? Yeah. If you haven't seen, and I'll list your link in the comment section, in the content, in the contact section of the podcast. If you have not seen Sex Coach Heather's reels, they are hilarious. They are phenomenal. They are educational. They help spread awareness to some of the things that we're going to discuss today in this podcast. And again, thank you so much for gracing us. I apologize for the technical difficulties. However, we're rolling. Let's go. We're going to start off with giving you the mic to tell us who you are, where you come from, and how you got to become the person that we know to be this sex coach. The mic
Yeah.
is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. I really, really appreciate and value your time. I think we all have a story around sex, to be honest. I think some of us grew up in very strict homes where no one talked about it. I think that some homes that we grew up in, it was overly sexualized, and you might have had a mom or dad that had people coming in and out of the house. I mean, there's so many different backgrounds, around sex. My personal background is that I am a born again Christian, and I did grow up in a very strict, legalistic type of environment where you just did not ever talk about sex. And if you had a question, like Larry and I were talking yesterday, my mom always said, shh, we don't talk about that. Yeah, you will find out when you get married. That's literally all I heard my entire life. So, as my body changed when I was a teenager, and, I had feelings, for boys, and I would, get turned on and different things, like that. Or, I started getting like these horny feelings. And what do I do, with that? And the feeling of wanting to touch myself and wondering if it was okay, and all of these different things I would try and talk to my mom about, but she always said no, that's not something that, we talk about. So I was left feeling very confused
Okay.
and very alone, and had no idea where to get my answers. Then comes sex education in the school, and I thought, here it is. I'm finally going to get my answers, so I understand, what sex is supposed to look like, or supposed to feel like, or, when can I start having sex, and all these kinds of questions that every single person I've ever met has. But then we get to the sex education, classes, and all they talked about was what you shouldn't do, all these diseases that you could catch if you had sex, and how to not get pregnant, and all the things. They showed a lot of abortion videos to scare
Wow.
us. Yeah. So it was all fear based. Never had any conversations about pleasure, about love, and how when you fall in love, one of the natural progressions is to, have intimacy with, your person. It was no conversation around that. So I went through my whole life, even adult, life, where I started to have relationships with people, and I just assumed that sex was a natural progression into that. It was never about my body, my pleasure as a woman. It was just, this thing where you just came together and the guy got off, and that was it. I never prioritized or understood or knew how to tap into my female pleasure, or, if I did because I was secretly masturbating, which, I think most of us do as kids and even adults, it never was like, oh, I can actually have a conversation with this boy that I'm with. And hey, like, let's try some stuff on how, you can please me, or how, I can maybe do some things in front of you to bring myself pleasure and be like an active participant in the pleasure thing. That never came up ever. I mean, even once I got married and I started having kids, still, I had no clue how to bring up this conversation, even though I wanted to. And I think most of us want to have these conversations because we see a lack in our relationships sexually, most of us, whether you're married or not. And we're wondering how we can talk about it. What kinds of things should we talk about? When should we talk about it? And all of that. And so I truly did not actually break into my own sexuality until I was 43.
Wow.
And I'm 49 now. So this was after I had 3 boys. This was after, my husband and I overcame our own sexlessness. So even after all of that, I still didn't feel comfortable fully talking to him. It wasn't really until I learned how to, tap into my female pleasure, and that God actually created me as a woman to tap into that. So it started with me, and it started with this sense of freedom that I started to feel because I went on this journey. Then I took that conversation to my husband and told him about the journey I was taking myself on, which then it was really cool because then it opened him up to have like conversations with me about his, upbringing and all of the stuff that his mom said around sex and his dad and all of these different things. And so it's really been for me an amazing journey. I'm still on it. I think I'll still be on it until God takes me home. Because I think as humans, we have like a place of growth, no matter what age that you're at, or no matter how long you've been married. I think that it just can keep getting better and better as you allow the space, for that. So that was a great question. Thanks, Larry.
You are a sexpert,
Yes.
which I hadn't really heard of that term until maybe this year. And so tell us about the 3 certifications that you have.
Yeah. So after helping people for 8 years with their sex issues, I was like, you know what? And no one told me I need to get certified. My clients that I already had for 8 years were totally fine. Like they never asked me to get certified or nothing, They just saw the experience that Chuck, my husband, and I had, and they wanted that, too. But for me, I actually really wanted to go back and learn, and I really wanted to have more knowledge, and I wanted to actually have like plaques and things that I could like put up in my office and
Cool.
and remind myself how kick-ass I am. So I went to school and completed certification for a love coach, master sexpert, and relationship coach, and I got certified December of last year. So it's been almost a year since I've had my certifications.
I want to I want to pause for a second, and I'm going to do a quick reset. So this is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast, sponsored by Anchor. We are streaming on all major platforms, and we also do audio and video podcasts. If you want to watch this particular podcast, which will be available audio and video, the video portion will come out on Spotify as well as our YouTube channel, which is Penton Pending Consulting Solutions LLC. All the other platforms, including Audible, and I'm still trying to figure out how they got our RSS feed because I never sent it to them, but we appreciate Audible. We thank Audible. And there's 30 other platforms that we're going to be on starting next week. So that's going to be phenomenal. We're talking with Christian sex coach Heather Tucker about why does my partner not want me? We're having a conversation about domestic violence and sexual violence in relationships. Heather primarily deals with women, but she does have some men clients, and we're going to talk about that just holistically. So some of my questions may seem like I'm talking about men, and there will be some that I ask her specifically about men. However, this conversation is about partners. And so we don't want people to feel like, oh, you're not being respectful of gender identities and different things like that. So that's my spiel. You don't like it, write to me about it. You got any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, email me. Trigger Warning Talk Podcast at gmail.com. So, that being said, Sex Coach Heather, I absolutely think what you are doing is phenomenal. I love your reels on IG. I got to check the ones out on TikTok. But I also love what you're doing more for these partners. We talked yesterday in great detail about a number of things. I want you to talk about some of the things that your clients talk to you about when they first come to you and say, I got issues in my relationship. What are some of those issues that you typically hear from whatever gender the partner is? Let's just
Yeah.
start with top 10.
Okay.
And if you don't got 10, that's fine.
I would say primarily it's painful sex. So
Painful
the
sex.
woman is experiencing painful sex.
Okay.
The man also experiencing pain when he goes into the woman's vagina. So that's something that couples come to me about. Lack of orgasm, not being able to fully, have an orgasm. Okay. Or the second part of the orgasm is they can't figure out how to tap into the G spot orgasm, or having multiple orgasms. So there's a lot of, issues around orgasms. I also have clients coming to me for their husbands. So I do work privately with couples. And sometimes it's body image issues for men and for women, whether, they're overweight or they just aren't comfortable in their own skin for whatever reason. And that can be at any size. Also, men sometimes will have issues with their penis size and they think that it should be bigger. So they're wondering, if they're pleasing their woman. They're wondering if they should get, the penis surgery to, elongate it. And so a lot of different issues like that. I do have several couples or men or women that complain about erectile dysfunction, uh, premature ejaculation. And so, sometimes their woman is taking it personal because he can't go for a long time. He's thinking that, like, the woman's thinking that the man just wants to get it over with. So there's a lot of psychological, underlining reasons why people come to me, when sometimes it's just a medical, issue that the couple needs to work on. So there's a lot of different issues, but I would say that those are the primary ones.
You
Oh,
heard
and also sexual abuse. I forgot about that one.
because I was getting ready to get to that.
I forgot.
We are so no. We are in sync. I'm just saying, I was about to get to that. So, because we're talking about traumas and we focus on traumas, especially domestic violence and sexually based offenses, this is part of the reason that I'm bringing an expert like yourself on, because people know me and they know I do stuff out of the box. I do stuff different. I want to talk to people that aren't talking about the stuff that should be talked about. I call it the iceberg conversations. We only talk about the 10% that we see because of the shame, the guilt, the judgment, the pain, the drama, the stigmas, the taboos, the stereotypes. I can go on, but I won't. I always say, Heather, let's deal with it from one or two perspectives. We can either flip that iceberg upside down and talk about the 90% that's under the water and face it head on, or let's keep it underwater. I got some scuba gear. Let's deep dive, which is what we're about to do. And we're going to expose and go into this abyss because this is serious.
Mm-hmm.
This is some serious stuff. I try to keep it lighthearted. I try to keep it lighthearted, but we're going to have some serious conversations. about this.
Mm-hmm.
Traumas, domestic violence, sexual violence. When we're talking about some of the things that you named in this top 10, the clients that talk to you about their sexual trauma, let's start with that first. What are some of the things that they're saying to you, regardless of gender?
Mm-hmm.
What are they saying to you about their sexual trauma that's causing them to have this lack of desire or lack of intimacy or lack of even wanting to be in a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Life is yours.
I mean, the majority of people that have been traumatized that way just don't want their partners to touch them, and the partner on the other end is like, what did I do? They're thinking it's about them, and they're feeling rejected, and they're feeling abandoned. They're questioning if their partner still loves them, if their partner still wants to be with them, when really a lot of times it's the sexual trauma or some form of violence that this person has experienced that is showing up in their relationship and in the bedroom, specifically, since we're talking about sex. But and that can be either side. It's not always the female that is not wanting the male to touch. A lot of times it's the male that doesn't want the female to touch.
Wow.
Sometimes the people are aware that they have abuse, but then sometimes other people aren't, because, as you know, sometimes the way that we cope is we block out certain situations. So, that is where I come in. A person might say, I don't want to be touched, or my partner doesn't want to be touched. And then the deeper that we're working, sometimes, memories will start to surface, and they'll realize, oh my God, like I went through this experience that I forgot about. And of course, this is one of the things that's showing up right now.
That's very interesting. When I think about the guilt and the shame of not having an orgasm, the lack of orgasm, one of the things that popped in my head, especially when we talked yesterday, I got one question with 27 parts. So we're going to get through as many parts as we can. Look, don't start laughing because you're going to throw me off. Okay. Seriously though.
Don't tell me not to laugh, because I will laugh.
when let's take the orgasmic portion. What typically, from your perspective, is a good amount of time for sex, the actual act, in terms of if a woman says, "Oh, this guy's a 2-minute man," or a couple of pumps and he dumps. I heard that somewhere
I
else.
never heard that expression before. A couple pumps and he dumps. I'm gonna have to remember that.
All I say is, if you try to trademark it, I want a piece of it. That's all I'm saying.
Let's just
Don't
say
leave
it.
me out.
Let's just say it on the next clubhouse room
Yeah,
that we do.
don't leave me out. That's all I'm saying. Or give me credit or something like that. Okay. So a couple of pumps and dumps or whatever. My ADD kicks in sometimes, I'm just saying. But really, like what's the ideal amount of time that women are looking for in terms of time in orgasms?
It's so different. Like, there's no one set time, because everyone's body is different, and we all have certain timings of how long it will take for us to climax. And we all have, certain ways that we like to experience pleasure. Some women like to only have one orgasm, you know. But then there's some females that like to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever in one sexual experience, because then for them, that's how they feel like they're done. So everyone is different. And honestly, the only way that each of you that's listening is going to know what that is for your partner is to ask them and to even experiment, because this could change over the years too. I mean, especially if your goal is to have a committed relationship and you want a long lasting relationship, there's going to be times when you come together and 5 minutes is plenty. Like that's all both of you need at that time. Maybe it's a time in your life where you've got kids running around and they're knocking on the door, or you feel that pressure. Maybe you live with your parents. I mean, there's so many different factors. But then maybe there's some times where you want a 2 or 3 hour experience. So, be open to all possibilities, never leave anything off the table, and, have these conversations with your partner. Today I feel like I could just love on you for 2 hours. How do you feel about that? And they're going to say, oh my God, yes. Or sometimes you might just want a hard fuck for like 2 minutes. Maybe you're right before menstruation and you're like so freaking horny and you feel like you can just have an orgasm with just looking at your partner. And so maybe you just like want that really, and you want
Yeah.
it like a fast, rabbit where you're going really fast and hard. So there's no right or wrong. You just have to really get to know your own personal body, and you have to know what you want every single day, and you have to know how many times a week you want sex. I mean, all of these things, it just takes place in getting to know your own body and then having these open conversations with, your partner. And I'm not talking about one conversation in your whole 50-year marriage. I'm talking like every 6 months to a year, you're having another conversation, because you don't know, like circumstances can change. Someone can get sick. There could be like all these different factors and circumstances that come in, and so then you need to meet up again and have like what'd you call it yesterday? A tune-up, I think so you kind of have like these marital or partnership tune-ups, where you're just having an open conversation. You're seeing how each other feels, and you're seeing if you want to go take it to another level, or if you want to pull back. And there's no right or wrong in that. It's just what is right for you guys as a partnership in that time frame that you're in, with your relationship.
That's very, very cool that you said that, the tune-up. And
I think you said it first yesterday.
when you said the reevaluation every 6 months, first I thought, why not more often? You're not saying don't have it more often. You're saying at minimum
I'm
semi-annual.
saying whenever, like whenever yeah, like you'll feel it in your gut. Like if you feel like,
Yeah.
man, I feel like, so learn to listen to your intuition on stuff like that. Like if you feel like, man, I kind of want to talk, then talk. Like there's no time limit. There's no rules, basically. When we're in these relationships, sometimes we put ourselves underneath this rule box. And I think sometimes the rule box comes from society, because we have so many rules around so many different things. And we think that our sexual experience also needs to be put, in this box. But there's no like one set of rules for every single couple. Like you guys literally get to decide what that looks like for you, and then just give yourself permission to change it up, if you want to.
Damn it, Heather, you keep reading my mind. I need you to stop doing it. Here's why. I'm sitting here, and again, my ADD is kicking in, and I'm mind mapping while you're talking and all this stuff. So just bear with me. So another part of the 27 parts is this. Who is the onus on when it comes to sex primarily in relationships, based on what you're hearing from the clients that you see? Because a lot of times people feel like the man should be the initiator, or because it's the woman and it's her body, she should be the one that's leading and guiding, putting it out there. Whether, it's like if you come home and you got on, if I come home from work and Mrs. LP has on the famous negligee that I like so much, that's a sign to me that she wants it to go down. What if I don't feel like it that day or that time or whatever? Now I got to think, oh man, I don't want to disappoint her.
Or
I
hurt
don't
her
want to
feelings
upset
or
her.
something.
I don't want her to start thinking that, all these negative things or whatever, because I didn't even have to have a bad day at work. It could just be anything. And going back to the trauma situations that people experience historically that are no fault of their own. Let's say I'm a person who was a survivor of a sexual trauma. And just at that moment, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm having a flashback to when I was traumatized. I can warn her all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. But right then and there, I just had this flashback. I'm triggered. Now I'm all discombobulated. Now she's all feeling a certain way and all this stuff. Do you hear that from certain clients?
Oh yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you tell them about dealing with that?
I mean, it really just boils down to conversation. So if the person who is an abuse survivor is having a flashback, then I always recommend you need to tell your partner, I am literally having a flashback right now.
Okay.
And again, individualize. There's no blanket statement for this because one person can be better in 5 minutes. So if they're having a flashback, hey, I'm having a flashback. You tell your partner, can you give me, 5 minutes? I'm going to go and do some breathing exercises. I'm going to go and, and remind myself that I'm safe. Sometimes people like to separate themselves from their partner to do that kind of work. Other people like to have their partner involved. So, for them to feel safe in that moment, they can sit down together and hold hands and breathe together, maybe do some tantra practices, where they're connecting and there's no pressure for sex and things like that. But it's so different. Like, it's so different for everyone. And I really think that it just takes an open mind to, understand your partner, like the person in front of you. Never compare your partner with someone else that you might know that has gone through a certain experience that's similar, but maybe they are, a person that wants sex all the time. Like, that's the thing is, like, coming out of a sexual abuse, you either don't want sex or you want it all the time. So there's, over sex and then there's under sex. And so again, you just really have to understand your partner. They might, be under sex, but then there's going to be times that they want more sex, because sex can be healing. Sex can be a healing modality for people that have been sexually traumatized. So I use and encourage couples to, use their sexual experience as a healing modality. It's just, how it comes across as healing, to the other person that has been abused. That's really what it boils down to.
Okay.
So
here's what I thought about also when I was looking at your reels. And the twerking videos are just absolutely, absolutely hysterical. Now, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because you are having the biggest smile and the biggest fun. And like, I'm looking at your IG page right now, and I love the picture of you and Chuck. You got your arms intertwined with a glass of red wine and stuff like that. And I love some of the captions that you have on your reel. Like, I'm looking at the one, and I'm going to share it real quick with the audience here. So those that are watching the podcast, you'll get a chance to see what I'm getting ready to put up on the screen here. And I think it has sound to it too. Hold on a second. Living my best life as a sex coach. Follow. Wait, what does it say? Follow for married. intimacy tips. And there's more to that. I'm telling you, like, y'all gotta follow her IG.
I know, and that reel I actually talked about, like, because see, I get flack for doing what I'm doing, especially from other people that are in, you know, my belief system, which is born again Christianity. You know, they're like, what in the world are you doing? And I'm like, dude, you don't even know. Like, there's so many people in the church. Yeah, like I said in that, and just go and read some of that stuff. Like, the captions are really, really good, because then I actually talk about like what people are actually experiencing that they have no voice, you know, or a place to go and talk with people about, because it can be an uncomfortable conversation, you know.
I'm gonna read it, but first I want to give everybody the disclaimer. This is the Trigger Wanna Talk podcast, brought to you by Anchor, produced by Independent Consulting Solutions LLC. We are streaming on all platforms. You can watch this podcast when it's released on Spotify and the Pending Consulting Solutions LLC YouTube channel. If you're triggered at any point, please call 911. If you don't have an immediate need and you're suicidal, you can call 988. That's the 911 number for suicide issues for you or anyone else. You also can follow the notes that'll be listed in the show description for domestic violence, trafficking, sexual assault. We have Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous, and Narcotics Anonymous also listed. And we're going to cover a missing person case of a young lady. Her name is Nancy Branch, and 3 other folks. We'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to read this information that you put in here in this video or this reel. You say, I get weird looks when I tell people I'm a Christian sex coach. Some think it's creepy. Others say, oh, thank God, I've been praying for you. Thing is, I see people in church struggling. They admit to feeling alone when difficulties in the sexual part of their marriage pop up. Some people in life, experience so much pain when they try to have intercourse on their wedding night that they were never able to consummate their marriage. Wow, I didn't know that. Another thing you say, some people in life have flashbacks from a rape or molestation, depending on how you pronounce it, that makes sex very scary. And again, we're talking about sexual violence and domestic violence. Some people in life have lost their sex drive after having kids and are struggling to keep the passion alive in their marriage. Some people in life feel unwanted same-sex attractions. Some people in life feel unwanted same-sex attractions or gender confusion and don't know what to do about it. Some people in life can't achieve or maintain an erection after their prostate surgery and are afraid that they'll never have a fulfilling sex life again. Some people in life have never had an orgasm. Hearing their stories breaks my heart because it reminds me of the 12 years of sexlessness my own husband and I experienced, where I felt alone with nobody to talk to. Heather, when you wrote that, what was going on in your head?
Well, tears were actually flowing when I wrote that, because I literally had just had a pastor's wife message me and say, what in the world are you doing? You're leading people away from Jesus. And I'm like, dude, no, I'm not. And I'd like to ask you how your sex life is, but I didn't actually ask her that. Because a lot of times these are my clients, though, pastors' wives, you know, I mean, who are they going to go talk to? They're at the top, you know, are they going to go admit to someone that we've got a problem and we're trying to help other people in their marriages? I mean, it's, you know, it's sad. So there's a lot of people that are sitting in those pews. They got the smiles plastered on their face, acting like everything's fine. That was me, actually, because my husband and I went to church every single week. I was even in the choir, and I worked with a lot of the babies, and my husband was also in the band, played bass. So, I mean, we were in there, you know, people knew us. But I mean, who are you going to go and talk to about some of this stuff? They don't make it normal to talk about sex in the church. So, you know, for most of us that grew up in the church or going to church, we feel like we have to hide all this stuff, and we don't have anywhere to go. So it just continues and continues and continues, which is why we had our 12 years of sexlessness that nobody in the church knew about. My family didn't know about it either. Like I had no one to talk to, you know? So
That's one of the best reels in explanations that I've seen in a long time. As humorous as it is, when you look at the opposite and you look at the words, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, damn. Wow. You lay it all out.
mm-hmm.
And I believe that dialogue with solution-based plans of action is so important. And we've talked about that. I'm a solution-based plan of action person.
Yeah.
I don't want to just dialogue. I'd rather sit on the couch, binge watching something on Netflix and picking the lint out of my belly button if we just going to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Got to come up with a plan. What are we going to do about this problem?
Yeah.
Because we have a problem or we have problems. What are we going to do about it? Because talking is, what did it say? What is the old saying? Talk is cheap.
Yeah.
You know, so I love the fact that you are providing solution-based plans of action for your clients,
mm-hmm.
especially as a Christian sex coach, because there are so many stigmas and taboos and stereotypes, like we talked about,
Yeah.
when it comes to religion and sex.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation in another room, in your room. Remember, I asked you about the sex toys?
Yes.
And I said, okay, so
Larry needed me to give him permission to bring a sex toy into the bedroom with with Mrs. LP. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
don't make me blush. And don't be putting that out there because I didn't say that. Okay. This is what I said. I said, Heather, what say you to people that, especially men? So this is where the men part came in. I said, Heather, I got a question. So here's one of the 27 parts. There are so many men out here now that are fucking intimidated because they feel like, oh my God, you know, if I got problems with ED or I'm a pumper and dumper type of dude or something like that, how can I compete with the rose?
Mm-hmm.
How can I compete with the rabbit? These are sex toys for those that don't know.
Right,
Google
right.
it. I can't compete with this damn electronic device, whether it's battery operated or you plug it in. Like, what am I going to do about that? You know, and I don't want to be somebody who is not able to please my wife because, you know, the rose is undefeated. You know what I mean? The rose and the rabbit are undefeated.
By the way,
You know,
I don't have either of those, the ones that you're mentioning, and it's just a personal preference. I personally like the feeling of a penis versus, you know, plastic. And then I just know, like, science wise, you can actually destroy your vagina if you have too much vibration. You can actually not even feel the penis go in after a while. So I personally don't. I mean, I like toys, but I think people should be a little more careful with them because you could actually be doing a little more damage than we realize. It's like you can numb out your vagina so much that you don't even feel the penis, going in. So
I mean, there are
just be
women.
careful. Just be careful.
Yeah, and again, you're not saying don't. It's just like anything.
No,
Moderation.
and you know what? For guys, like here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is what I need you guys to realize. Okay, we are not going out and getting a toy because we're not pleased with you. That has nothing to do with why a woman. I'm telling you, no woman is going and buying a toy because she's not pleased with their man. We just want variety. Like, we like to have fun. We like to be adventurous. And, you know, we hear from our friends who maybe have a partner how fun it is to have a toy, you know, how fun it is to add on, you know. So maybe the man has brought you pleasure and brought the female pleasure, but maybe he's tired now, but she's not done. So maybe she wants to have her second, third, fourth, fifth orgasm, and you're tired, but you still want to be involved, or maybe you just need a little rest. And so, you know, you could bring a toy in those times. Use a toy for a couple of orgasms. Maybe that's giving you a break, you know, and now you can tap back in, you know, yourself. So it's just variety. That's all it is. It's just variety. It's not replacing you. She doesn't think that your penis is, the wrong size for her. And now she's going and getting this big old penis that, no human even has. It looks like a horse penis. It's just variety. That's all it is. You don't need to take it personal. She's not wanting to replace you. She still needs your touch. She still needs human connection with the person that she loves. So that will never, ever, ever go away, ever.
We got a few more minutes. I gotta absolutely bring you back because we're just scratching it. I feel like we're having an iceberg conversation because we're only dealing with the 10% because it's just so much.
Yeah.
We're gonna do an ongoing series. I've been working on that we don't do seasons or anything like that, but I'm like, for the fall, I'm gonna be introducing some very specific ongoing discussions about certain things. So I definitely want to have you come back and talk in greater detail about some of this stuff. I got one more domestic violence and sexual violence question to ask you before we wrap it up. On that reel that you posted, you said that some people are having flashbacks from a rape and molestation that makes sex very scary. For those partners that have experienced domestic violence, either from a sexual trauma or just a physical assault, what are 3 things besides communication that you coach them on about dealing with domestic violence situations?
Mm-hmm. Well, I use a modality, and I use this with all of my abuse survivors. It's called the consent game, and you can actually do this with your partner. It kind of makes it fun. It makes it feel less threatening because you're just saying with this game, like, maybe I will be open to this, and it's not putting pressure that you have to. So what you do as a couple is you sit with your partner and you have your clothes on or clothes off. It's completely up to you how you guys, want to do that, how you guys are comfortable. And you basically are just sitting looking at each other and you're asking, can I touch you here? Can I touch you there? Can I kiss you there? Can I use a toy here? And you're just asking questions and you're going from the head all the way down to the body, because sometimes we don't really know, like, we know that we've been abused, but we can't remember all of the parts that were affected.
Okay.
Until our partner is actually like trying to touch us, and all of a sudden you're like, you're tensing up and I don't know why am I tensing up? I have no idea. So, what you could do is, like, have your partner touch your head and just say, is it okay if I touch you there? Does that feel safe? Does it feel safe for me to touch you here? Does it feel safe for me to touch your face? Does it feel safe for me, to kiss you? What about kissing your ears or biting your, you're just going through the whole entire body. So that way you understand what your partner is okay with and not, so that when you actually go to have, intimacy times, what parts of the body to avoid.
Absolutely.
Until they're actually ready, because sometimes they might not be ready yet, but they might want to have that on the table, and they might want to say to you, hey, I think I kind of want to try this position, or you touching me here, or adding a toy in. Let's just see how I feel now that we've been working on this consent thing for a little while now. Let me see, because now I feel more safe with you and I've developed a higher level of trust with you. So let's see now if I can try. And then, once you try, oh, nope, I'm not ready yet, so allow it to be pulled right back off the table. And, your partner, of course, needs to make that commitment to you that they won't get frustrated and they won't judge you, and they will still have and honor that level of safety and trust and stuff, so that the next time you guys come together, there's still that level of safety. Because the last thing that you want is for, like, all of a sudden their face to get all contorted, or like they're, you can see fear in their eyes, but they're not having a voice, to it, and they don't know how to say it. So that's why it's better to do consent games and things like that before you actually come to the bedroom, so that you can avoid the fear and, the memory flashbacks and those types of things until, they're actually ready, for that.
Consent games. I love that. We're going
Mhm.
to talk more about that at a later time because I'm telling them, I got another question with 27 parts. Man, the mind mapping that kicked in when you said consent games, whoo, mind blown. I'm telling you, like, we'll talk about that later. So,
Yeah, I mean, I just touched on, there's like a whole thing, like a whole modality I use with my private clients. So, I mean, if that is something that you guys are interested in, you can always reach out and we can work on that together. But so that's just like the overview of the game.
and I'm glad you said that because, no, you know what? I'm going to save it for the next interview between us
Okay.
because that's how we do it. It's not so. We're going to wrap up here with our shameless plug segment before we go to our missing persons conversation. How can people get in touch with you? What do you got coming down the pipe?
Hmm.
Where can they get your materials?
Hmm.
The mic is yours. Just you got any
Marketing.
all this stuff. Like, whatever you got coming up, like, hey, I'm going to be performing at such and such. I got a speaking engagement here and there. I got this book
Mhm.
coming out. I got these two that are available. Like,
Yeah, man. I love it. So I am on all platforms except LinkedIn, which I have not tapped in, but
get on
I'm
LinkedIn.
on, I need to, I just haven't figured out how to do it. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Clubhouse, all of it is Sex Coach Heather. So you can find me there. And then I do on my Instagram, actually all the places, the link, like my personal link that is found on all those platforms, it goes right to anything, everything and anything that you possibly want to know about me. I have a freebie on my links that actually will tap into 23, there you go, 23 different ways a female can orgasm. So if you're wanting to learn how to bring your female all kinds of pleasure, definitely download that PDF. That's free. You're going to see my best-selling book that just came out. It's only been out a week and we already hit bestseller, which I'm so freaking proud of. And I can show you, this is what it looks like. So why doesn't my husband want me? It's all about our 12 years of sexlessness. You can get it on Amazon, on the Kindle or paperback. And we have some ratings that have come in, some reviews. I'm super, super proud of that. Also on that link, when you go back, you can see, you can book a private call. So see private sex coaching. So I go into the importance of why it's important to work one-on-one with someone like myself, the benefits, and I have some testimonials in there. I also, if you don't really like one-on-one, I also have a group program called Sexify Her that's right above that link. And that's just for women. That's a group program where we actually meet as a group on Zoom every few weeks. And we're talking about all the things that I teach in there on how to overcome a sexless, relationship. I have classes that I teach in there. So I have striptease classes. I have lap dance classes, burlesque heels classes. I mean, there's just so much that you can actually learn to spice it up and take it back to your husband. I even have how to give a kick-ass blowjob. I have a class for how to, eat out a woman properly and all the different parts of her vagina that simulate. So there's just a lot. And then you can also tap on some radio interviews, podcast interviews. And I also have a sex advice blog that I'm a part of where I write for somebody every couple of months. I have something new coming out. So I have a lot. I have a lot that you can tap into. But I would love to just meet you and, at least have a follow on Instagram and reach out and just let me know that you were on, LP's Larry. I don't know how you talk about yourself on your podcast, but, let me know that you listened. And then, if you would like to have a conversation, if you are struggling, or just maybe want to reach out and say thank you, thank you for this episode, because it's helping me even just to heal a little bit more and help me feel more comfortable with talking about sex, with my partner.
Heather, I'm going to post and all that information that I highlighted on the screen. So again, if you're not able to watch the podcast, what I was doing was I pulled up her link tree and
Hmm.
I was clicking on all the links. I think I missed one, but I clicked on all the links that she has in her link tree. So her link tree works, it's active, and she has some great content on there. So I'll post that in the show notes as well as a link to her IG. But basically, you can get all her information from her link tree.
Hmm.
So we'll have those two links available. Final question.
Yes.
If Heather could write an email or a letter to her younger self, what would she say?
Man, if I could write a letter to myself or even go back, and talk to my younger self, like I would just say, you know what, whatever desires and fantasies that are in you, that's on purpose. God put that there. There's nothing wrong with, what you're feeling or what you're curious about, and just tap in. Like, don't wait so long, really learn how to stop caring about what other people think. Find your own voice, find your own, way to step into your full on like sexuality where you're super, super comfortable with who you are and who God made you to be. And just not give a fuck, man. Like, don't care about what anyone else, thinks. Even your parents. You might lose some friends and stuff along the way, but when you truly own who you are, man, you're going to be the happiest, like go lucky, joyful, person. And that's what all of us desire anyways, is to be our most happiest self. So, that's definitely what I would do, is like get my happiness sooner.
So, Heather, I want to thank you so much for being on the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. As always, you are such a gracious person. I absolutely love what you bring to the table, and you are always welcome to come back again. We're going to have this on. I think the part two is going to be consent games, and we're going to
Mm,
really talk about that in relationship to these traumas too, because so many things pop into my head when you were talking about the don'ts and the
hmm.
do's,
Hmm.
the head to toe thing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's really important because I have a thing that I want to share with you about that, and we'll talk about that at a later time. But we'll definitely do another podcast, a part two on this.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for having me.
I want to thank you. I know you got to go pick up your kids, and I just want to say again, peace and blessings be upon you and Chuck. I can't wait to meet him. Give him my love. Mrs.
No.
LP and I say we just give you guys thumbs up and flowers. Until next time, my friend. I see you in those clubhouse streets.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Peace. Excuse me. So that was our sex expert, Christian sex coach, Heather Tucker, who just has a wealth of information. Definitely tap into her because I'm telling you, she is the bomb.com. We're going to go into the missing persons component, and I want to bring up some information about this young lady. Actually, it's not just one person, it's four people, which blows me away. So, you guys know Mrs. LP is our missing persons expert extraordinaire. She definitely brought this to my attention, and I was like, oh my God, what is going on with that? It is a story about a young lady. Her name is Nancy Branch. Nancy Branch, and let me stop the screen share real quick because I'm having a little technical difficulty. I don't know why that popped up like that. Nancy Branch is a person who, from the story, mysteriously disappeared along with three other people after departing from an airport at a single engine plane, and they were never seen again. So part of the story comes from Reddit and part of the story comes from YouTube. I'm going to play the YouTube clip real quick, and here we go.
Nancy Branch, age 29, last seen December 16, 1992, boarding a single-engine Piper Archer airplane, which took off from Santa Barbara Airport with three companions. 8 minutes into the flight, the pilot contacted FAA Flight Control, describing weather conditions as treacherous, but gave no other details, and the plane vanished off radar a few minutes later. Despite an extensive search in the Big Basin area of California, not a single piece of wreckage has ever been found. Along with her 3 companions, Nancy Branch disappeared.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the link to the Reddit story. And again, that news story came from YouTube. I'll post the link to that. And I'm going to post a link to either Reddit or because I got a bunch of different sources. So I'll decide at a later time. But if you just Google Nancy Branch, you can find out a lot of information about her. Again, we cover missing persons cases. They have more information about the other 3 individuals. There was the 3 occupants included her fiance, 31-year-old Kevin, a newly married couple, 29-year-old Alan, and 31-year-old Amy Stewart. So those are the 4 individuals that they just disappeared and nobody knows who they are. I want to thank everybody for listening to this interesting podcast. Again, we always want to do something different. That's what we do here. This is the Trigger Warning Talk podcast. If you have been triggered at any point during this conversation, please call 911 because, again, seriously, that is where all the help can begin. The documentation process, assembling the resources, so on and so forth. As always, peace and blessings be upon all the listeners and the viewers of this podcast. Live in awareness, never live in fear. And with that, LP out.